Hello and welcome to this project in a box tour looking at assurance. So here we are in the Windows application, and we can see here the process we're currently looking at and the document and some of the files open within that. And the first point is one that we will have looked at in the document and process tour, which is about looking at version history. The version history for the file shows us quite a lot about how it's been worked on over the time. We can see whether the file was manually added by a user, as this one was, and then how it's been worked on, who worked on it at which point. And of course we can go away and view the particular historic versions of those files if we want to. If the file was added from a template originally, from the method, it will have no user associated with the first version. We can see that there, and we can see how that's been worked on as it's gone through the process as well. We can also see from within here approval and baseline, status information, and we can also view the approval if there is an approval set of information there. In this case, self-approved, relatively straightforward. If there's a formal approval process that's happened, you'll be able to see details of the discussion that went on and who voted and how they voted, etc., associated with that particular version of approval. And there's further detail on that in the approvals tour. We can also see information about the user's actions beyond checking files out and into what they actually viewed. The best place to go and look at that is in the user profile here. And every user can see that for themselves. It's called the recent activity. So if I refresh this here, it automatically looks at the last 7 days. And you can see what I have been doing on when I logged in, what I've been doing with things on the server, what I've been doing with things on this particular project. In this case, not a great deal, but I could go and look at other projects here as well if I wanted to, and I could also, because I'm an administrator, look at other users. Normal users can only look at their own audit trails, but this would show details of checkouts and views, and when I'd sent emails of things to people, when I've updated projects, some information and things of that type. And that's all available into a number of different formats. We can also see that into a document report. So we have the document here, which consists in this case of these 5 files, or 4 files and a link location. And I can use the document report when I'm a modify level user on this document, and also when I have a manager type license. So I'm just click that, it's gone away and run, and gives me essentially all the audit and assurance information we have for this particular document. I can see which flags are set against it. I can see which locations within the system it's used. It's currently only used in this one project and in these 2 locations within that project. But it may be shared document, and therefore it's used in multiple different projects. It may be used in a whole load of different processes. We can see if there are any particular permissions applying here. So we can see actually that this document is treated slightly different to others in the project, in that a customer user can read it, and normally that may not be the case, and a read-write user can read it, and normally obviously they would be able to read-write that document. If there are notifications running, we'll see the history of that here, and then for each of the files, we see some information about the file. We can see its usage over a period of time in terms of who has checked it out and checked it in, the full detail as repeated from the file audit trail. But then here we also get to see information about views as well, and send out to emails, as well as checkout information. And this is for a time frame, and we can see in this particular report there was no time frame set. And that's because we've run it from here. If we run it from the reports menu, we can choose the time frame we're interested in. So we could get the last week's data here for file activity, and we get that for each of the files, so we can see which users have been interacting with those particular files. So that's a very useful report to be able to run for a particular document. We might want to scale that up though and run that across the whole project, or in fact multiple projects. So included in our project report here, we can include a project document list, and I'm going to run that into a default report arrangement. And in fact there's an example of this on the reports page of the website, where you can go and see a produced report with this content placed within it. Just take a moment to do. So we've got all the same sorts of things we would see in normal project reports. Right down at the end here we have our document status information showing all the documents by document order. So we can see some of these things contain no files. So the acceptance record contains no files here. And obviously that's an empty placeholder looking for some content to be provided. Some of these documents do have some content, and we can see latest information about them, are they currently approved, etc. So some really quite useful information there as part of the project status reporting, if you like, including the document information. That's at a project level. If we want to go a step further, we can go and look at the project document status report, and this allows us to run this same sort of report across a number of projects. So let's pick a couple of projects here. We've got 2 examples, and I'm going to run this to Excel. And this isn't. We can also run this one to HTML. It gives us perhaps not such a nice looking format here in Excel, but it's certainly much more powerful in terms of what we can do with it. So we have the data here for firstly one project, and then the next project we have it in a similar sort of format where we've got project documents, then specialist documents. If we had stages here, we'd see each stage as well laid out, and then we've got each document and the files contained within it. So for example, straight away here we can see that this particular document contains nothing. There's no files present within it. As we get to documents which do have files, we can see information about how many times those files have been changed, are they currently approved, last description, who they were last looked at or checked in by, are they currently in an approval process, are they currently being worked on. So a whole load of bits of data there, and we've got that here for 2 projects. We could have run this across many more projects, and then we can then look to answer particular sorts of questions. So if we filtered this data to look for example, approval to proceed or acceptance record documents here, we can see this particular project's acceptance record doesn't have one, but the other project does. So we could have ordered by that field and gone away to answer that sort of question about particular types of documentation. Do we have it across a range of projects? So this is very useful to go in and have a look through the status of how documents are being used across projects. If we want to go and find one particular thing, of course, we can use the search, and the search allows us to search a keyword index for the entire project. So if I want to look in here and find the term risk, which documents in the project contain the term risk? It's going away to get those for me. I've got, show me the first 100, and we can see a number of those here. So we can see that our risk register, or our plan test here, not unsurprisingly contains the word risk all the way from the beginning. Our daily log contains that as well, and we can go through and see all the various different files that have got the term risk in it. Obviously we might want to narrow that phrase down to something a bit more concise, but we can search for documents that contain that particular term. We can also search for file names. So if I want to find any Microsoft project files in this project, I can go away and find that there aren't any, or I can look for particular combinations of document flags if we have flags set against our documents in the project. So that's about using the assurance tools to investigate a project, to check for quality assurance, etc. Assurance in the term that the way we're using to describe it here, is also used to think about permissions and control of access to materials. So let's have a quick look at that. If you're the modify user in the project, you can change other people's permission access on the particular document, and you can do that from here. So if I look at project mandate permissions form, I can see that modify users and read users have their default level of access. A customer user has a read access, and a read write user has a read access. And I can go through looking at this a document at a time. If I want to change them, I can, because I have the permissions to be able to do that. If we want to look at that more globally, we can instead go and look at the project document permissions form. And this shows us that permission picture across the full set of documents for this project. It's a relatively modest set because it's a simple project, but we can see for the user we're looking at, and in fact it's a user group, so it's the group customer, and it will apply these changes to, or these settings, to anybody who's placed in that customer group. They have no access clearly to quite a lot of documents on this project. They have read access to some, read write access to one. So they'll be able to see the content of these ones and change the content of this one. So it's a pretty straightforward sort of model. It also tells us which documents have notification rules running against them, and we can also set those up from here. If we want to change people's access around, we can do that very easily. If I want to give the people in the customer group project board add vice as well, I've now updated that, press save, and they'll now be able to see that document in their project list. When you don't have access to a document in your list here, it just doesn't show to you at all. It's completely invisible. You don't know it exists within the project environment. And obviously if you give somebody modify rights, they'll be able to do some of these same sorts of things themselves, depending on the type of manager of license they might have. So that's pretty straightforward to do. Obviously if we want to jump and look at a different sort of user, we can do that here. So if we go and look at the read write user, we can see they've generally got read write on most things, apart from we saw that in the mandate they only had read access, and that's reflected obviously here as well. So that's nice and simple. There's lots of tools there to help you with assurance of your project, controlling who's got access to what materials and seeing how they're working with them. If you have any questions about this, do let us know and we'll be glad to answer them. There are some other video tools that you'll be interested in related fields, such as document management, permissions management and the reporting tools. Thank you very much.